Hi there. It's Vern. So, doing another vlog. Um, I'm kind of troubled today. And if you pay attention to the news, just at all, you probably know why. Um, First off, as per usual, this vlog comes with no script. I've only got a vague idea of what I want to say. So there's a chance I might say something stupid, and if that's the case, I do apologize. I know what's in my heart, and I know what's in my mind, but I have a hard time making my mouth say it. Part of what makes Pet Turtles a personal victory for me is because I'm finally able to translate something I'd been feeling into something that's decipherable. Um, but anyway, uh, so second thing, as much as this vlog is hard for me to say, it's probably going to be hard to hear. Um, so I just ask that you may not like some of the things I have to say. I just ask that give me the benefit of a doubt and hear me out, and formulate your opinions after you hear what I have to you hear what I have to say, as opposed to before. Um, so with all that out of the way, um, Black Lives Matter and defund the police. Defund the police. Um, Let me explain why I believe those two things. So obviously, I had a mom, and my mom passed away. Obviously, well, first off, obviously, I'm a Caucasian person. My mom was a Caucasian person. Um, but I had a mom, and my mom passed away, and Pet Turtles is obviously, as you saw from like the trailer that we made a century ago. Pet Turtles is about someone who loses their mom. Uh, and so, like, obviously, that's there. Obviously, Pet Turtles is based on real life experiences. Pet Turtles is about someone who loses their mom. I lost my mom. That's a real thing. Um, and this is something I've very few people know. I've told some counselors that I had. I've told my wife. I told Forrest. But very few other folks know this. So bear with me because it's kind of hard just to put it all out there. So like, my mom did pass away, but that wasn't a surprise. And what I mean by that is like, she got sick. There was a long space and time between when she got sick and when she passed away. I saw her get more and more sick. Um, like, obviously, we all die. It all comes to us. But, like, I could kind of see it happening to her before it did. There was a few times before she passed away where, like, it seemed like she was going to pass away. Um, and I don't want to discredit like the grief I felt from that. Obviously, like it was hard for me when my mom passed away. It's still something like I wrestle with, but um, my mom wasn't my first serious encounter with death. Um, when I was young, like I had some like distant cousins or uncles or whatever that I had never met before pass away. Um, like my grandparents passed away, but I didn't really have a relationship with them, know them. Um, my my first serious exposure to death um, was a friend dying in a very tragic way. Um, and I won't get too into it. I'll put a link in the description where you can read about it if you want to. I won't get too in depth as to what happened there in this. But a friend passed away in what appears... She didn't pass away. She was taken away. In what appears to me and several other reasonable, rational, logical, right-minded human beings, what appears to us all as like a very obvious miscarriage of justice. She was found in an apartment that did not belong to her. The person that she was with was a police dispatcher, a 911 dispatcher. That person's father was a state trooper. That person's mother worked for the state police. It seems very obvious what happened there. And as I said, I'll post the details later, but like, it was a very obvious miscarriage of justice, I think. And it was a very obvious miscarriage of justice that was carried out by not one, but two police departments, a local police department and a state level police department. And that was really, 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 really tremendously hard for me. It was really, really tremendously hard for several people. But that was my first exposure to death, and losing someone. It was the person that was taken away was someone I was very close with at one point. Someone who I thought a lot about. And just someone who I had an extensive history with. And someone who I planned on having like a extensive future with. Like, I thought we were going to be friends for a long time. This person was very talented. I thought I was going to be able to like see art that they produced and things like that for years and years to come. It was just a thing where like I thought this person, like, I was young and I was dumb and I was foolish, and I thought that like the only times that people die is whenever they get sick and they get sick in old age. And this was my first time in my life where I saw that like it can happen at any time. It can happen to people in the prime of their life. It can happen to people before the prime of their life. It can happen to special people. It can happen just suddenly, and it can happen in a very tragic and a very senseless way, and it can happen in a way where there's no resolution. I think it's apparent what happened, and I think the person that caused that to happen, I don't think, like, they are still walking around, just living their own life, and the rest of us are just kind of left to sift through the wreckage of that decision that they made. And that was 8 years ago. That was 2012, and it has been a long road since 2012. And I've had and have a lot of grief that comes from that decision that one person made. And it's really just like, it's altered the course of my life. It's really like changed my personality. I feel like I'm a different person than I was before that happened. In some ways, a lot better. I'm a compassionate person now. I'm a caring person now. But also, like, in a lot of ways, I've changed for the worse in that, like, man, I really struggle sometimes. And there's some times where it's just like, it's just really hard to like get out of bed, really hard to function. I'm someone who's dealt with like depression and sadness my whole life, but this like one event that happened in 2012 just really like ramped it up for me. And so like the reason I say all this is just because, like, as much Pet Turtles is based on a true story, and as much as I did have a mom who did die and who I did lose, the grief I felt from that was different than the grief I felt from losing my friend back in 2012. And when I was writing the script for Pet Turtles, and when we were shooting Pet Turtles, a lot of the decision making that happened regarding Pet Turtles was drawn on the experiences and the memories of the grief that happened from losing my friend in that tragedy back in 2012. That thing that happened in 2012 is the emotional basis for Pet Turtles. And the reason that happened is just because, like, and maybe it's because I was, like, young and dumb and naive and stuff, but, like, I thought that if I were to make a movie about, like, that mirrored that event more closely, that had, like, the just, you know, if it mirrored that event, the one that caused me, like, the grief and, like, changed my life forever, if I tried to make a movie that mirrored that event more closely, I kind of felt that, like, people would have a hard time relating to it. I thought that whole event was just so unrealistic, and that's part of, like, what was so hard for me. It was just, like, it felt so unrealistic and unreal, and unsimilar to anything, that, like, I thought I was alone in it. Like, I didn't think there's anyone that had experienced anything like that before. And I thought that was just, like, way too much and way too jarring, and way too much to sift through. And also, like, I didn't think I was, like, talented enough or capable enough or skilled enough to handle a story whose stakes were that big. I just didn't think that's something I was capable of doing. I just thought, like, that was a story way too big for me. In a way, it still is too big for me. And so, like, I shifted things. In Pet Turtles, the mom passes away. Lyle's mom passes away. But the grief that is felt by Lyle is really channeling the grief that I felt from the incident back in 2012. And, yeah, as I said, like, I just thought that was way too much to try to tackle with the first movie, and I thought it was way too much for people to relate to. And, I was young and dumb and naive and thought, like, nobody else would ever experience anything like this, or no one had experienced anything like this. And then I got older. I'm 8 years older, and I saw the way the world has gone and the way the world continues to go, and I realized, like, unfortunately, I've realized that, unfortunately, losing people to very obvious miscarriages of justice and losing people to people who abuse the privileges that come with their badges, unfortunately, that is a reality for a lot of people. Unfortunately, that's happened to lots of families and lots of communities. And I'm not alone in that, and I hate that I'm not alone in feeling the feelings that come from a senseless tragedy in which the people who committed the tragedy are let to walk free, or let to get, you know, a slap on the wrist or whatever it might be. And it's just it's really hard to see the stuff that arises from these miscarriages of justice, and folks allow it to happen to protect someone, you know, to protect someone else who went to the same training that they did, or someone who wears the same uniform that they did. And it's really hard to be a witness to that. And maybe in the future I'll try to make something about that. But Pet Turtles was really just me trying to explore my own grief and try to put that into words. And I really wanted Pet Turtles to be a thing that, as I said earlier, part of what made the grief that I felt from that incident back in 2012 so hard was that I felt so alone in it. I felt like no one else had experienced the feelings that I was feeling or had felt. And I wanted to make something that was true to those feelings, so that if there's anyone else that was out there that was like me and had lost someone to a senseless tragedy and was just like really just like over their head, grief was over their head, like Pet Turtles could exist as something that they could like watch and not feel as alone. I had hoped that in making Pet Turtles that like someone would see Pet Turtles and they'd be like, I'm not alone. There's other people that feel the same feelings that I feel. And I know it's not done, but like even in its not done state, I feel like we accomplished that. And I just, in a way, like, I really hate that it's going to have like more emotional resonance whenever it is done. And I don't, as I said, I don't really know where else I'm going with this, and I didn't come out with like a game plan. I just had this feeling where I was like, I need to talk about this today. But I think just like, I guess what I'm just trying to say and what I want to sum things up with is like, injustice is a very real thing. And people with badges abusing the privileges that they have is a very real thing. And if you think that's not real, like you should wake up. Like if you're blind to that reality, like you need to do some research. You need to look into your own hearts. You need to do something, because like it's a very real thing. I'm nobody, and it happened to me, and it's happened to several other people. It's happened to several other people, like just in the too many people. It happening to one person is too much, but it's happened to so many people just like this week. Like George Floyd and like Breonna Taylor, and like those are people. Those were real people that are gone now, and they're gone because of like senselessness, and gone because like a lack of awareness, a lack of caring. And at the time of recording this, George Floyd's, the people who killed him, like, they've been arrested, but only after like so much outcry and so many people like fighting for that to happen. And like at first it was like a slap on the wrist for the guy, the main guy. I don't want to say his name, but like at first it was a slap on the wrist, and it was only after people kept pressing that like those charges got elevated. And at the time of recording this, like right now, like the people that killed Breonna Taylor are still like, no charges been pressed. They're still walking free. There was a law that was passed that was like no more no knock raids, and that's great, but that's just like, they killed her in her sleep, and they're still walking free. And it's just a really hard pill to swallow, and it's a thing that I hate seeing. And there's people out there that's like get all uppity and complain like, I understand that people are upset, but like you shouldn't abuse property and you shouldn't destroy property. And it's just like, y'all, like Target has insurance. These corporations and these businesses are going to be fined, and a lot of the destruction of property and stuff that's happening is by people who are trying to make the people who are actually crusading for justice look bad. And it's an attempt to discredit like very real emotions and very real feelings. And it's just like, it's just like a Twilight Zone world that we live in, where like one guy can get killed brutally for maybe a fake $20 bill, but another guy who killed someone can just like walk away scot-free, maybe get a slap on the wrist, maybe get paid administrative leave. And that's just like, I'm sorry, but that's a fucked up world, and I hate that we're living in it. And so I don't know, as I said, I don't know where I'm going with this, and I didn't really have an end game other than just I wanted to talk about this, but just like, I just want to implore you guys all to look into your hearts and do some research, and really examine these situations, and realize that, like I say as sirens go off in the background, there is a very real problem with the police abusing their status and abusing the rights that they have and the privileges they have and abusing the powers that come with their badges. There's a very real problem, and it's been a very real problem for a long time, and it's a problem that affects every single one of us. So like, I don't know. For some folks, a police presence makes you feel safe, but for a lot of folks, myself included, like, we do not feel that safety when the police are around. Especially whenever some of us that don't feel that safety because the police killed our friends and they got away with it. So, thank you for watching. And, as I said earlier, Black Lives Matter, defund the police.